Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're diving straight into a really fascinating aspect of influence. Pre-suasion. Think of it as like setting the stage so that when your message actually arrives, it lands with much, much greater impact. It's about seizing that opportune moment, what some sources call a privileged moment for change.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's less about the specific words you use, really, and more about the mental environment you cultivate beforehand. We've looked at some, well, really interesting material that breaks this down into 7 key steps.
7 steps, okay.
And these steps can give you, a real edge in understanding and guiding others.
And that's precisely what this deep dive is all about, tailored specifically for you, the listener. We're going to explore these 7 crucial ideas.
Yeah.
First, really grasping this privileged moment. Second, the skill of front-loading attention. Third, the subtle yet powerful art of harnessing associations. Fourth, strategically leveraging key influence principles right from the start. Fifth, the foundational magic of building early rapport through liking.
So important.
Sixth, how to signal importance and even causality. And finally, the impact of crafting a receptive environment. Ready to get into it?
Absolutely. Let's start by understanding the critical role of timing.
Fantastic. So let's kick off with the power of the before really understanding this privileged moment for change. Our source and highlight this is that prime window, that moment of heightened receptivity right before you deliver your core message. It's almost like preparing the ground before you plant a seed. You wouldn't just toss seeds onto hard soil and expect them to flourish, would you?
That's a great analogy, yeah.
Yeah.
What's really interesting here is why this moment is so powerful. It seems our minds aren't always in a state of, high alert.
Right.
There are these brief periods where our cognitive defenses are maybe slightly lowered, where we might be more open to new information or a different perspective. That's the privileged moment.
And the advantages of seizing this moment seem pretty substantial. The material we looked at points to increased receptivity. People are simply more open to what you're saying. Plus, it can significantly amplify the impact of your message, making it stick more effectively. And ultimately, it can boost the likelihood of agreement. It's about making your job easier, right?
Precisely.
Yeah.
If you can tap into that heightened state of openness, your message doesn't have to fight quite so hard for attention and acceptance. The mental landscape is already more favorable,
But what if you miss this privileged moment entirely? The consequences don't sound ideal. Our sources suggest you might encounter more resistance, like trying to convince someone who's already kind of made up their mind.
Yeah, definitely.
It can also lead to wasted effort. You might have a brilliant idea, but if the timing's off, it just won't resonate. And ultimately, you could lose out on valuable opportunities to influence a situation.
Think of it this way. If you try to persuade someone when they're stressed or distracted, your message is much less likely to break through.
Yeah.
That privileged moment offers a clearer pathway.
Now, our sources provided some compelling examples of companies that seem to intuitively grasp this. Consider Apple. With their pre-launch campaigns for new iPhones, they build this incredible sense of anticipation and desire before they even reveal the product. By the time the announcement comes, everyone's practically waiting with bated breath.
That's a textbook example, really, of leveraging the privileged moment. They're not just announcing a phone, they're fulfilling a pre-existing desire they've carefully cultivated.
Right.
It makes the actual launch much more impactful because people are already mentally prepared and, frankly, eager.
And on the flip side, what about companies that don't quite nail this? The material we reviewed mentioned launching a product with little to no pre-launch buzz. It just kind of appears, on the scene.
Yeah.
And often the initial interest is lukewarm at best.
Exactly. Without that groundwork, the launch can feel like a whisper in a crowded room. People haven't been primed. There's no existing curiosity. So the product has to work much, much harder to gain any traction.
Now, for you, our listener, who's looking to absorb information efficiently, understanding this first step is crucial. It highlights how the timing of when you encounter new knowledge can significantly influence how well you grasp and retain it.
Right.
Think about trying to learn something new when you're exhausted versus when you're feeling fresh and alert. It's different.
Absolutely. Being mindful of your own mental state and the state of those you're communicating with can make a huge difference in how effectively information is exchanged and understood.
Okay, let's build on that and move to our second key area. Captivating attention. First, the art of front-loading. This sounds like grabbing someone's focus right from the get-go before you deliver the main substance of your message.
Precisely. Yeah, front-loading attention is about strategically directing that initial mental spotlight.
Yeah.
It's like the opening scene of a movie. It needs to hook you in and make you want to keep watching.
And the benefits seem pretty clear.
Yeah.
Increased engagement if you capture their attention immediately, they're much more likely to stick around and listen. It can also lead to enhanced processing. When someone is focused, they're better equipped to understand what you're saying. And ultimately, it can amplify your persuasive power. A focused mind is a more receptive one, right?
Exactly, yeah. When you have someone's undivided attention, your message has a far greater chance of breaking through all the mental clutter and making a lasting impression.
Conversely, if you fail to front-load attention, what are the potential downsides? Our sources suggest you risk your message being completely overlooked. People might be distracted, preoccupied with other thoughts, or simply not fully present. And even if they do hear you, the impact could be weakened because they weren't fully engaged from the outset.
Right.
And ultimately, it can be much harder to gain their buy-in if you haven't first secured their focus.
Think about trying to start a conversation with someone who's, like, scrolling through their phone.
Oh.
Unless you do something to really grab their attention, your words might just fade into the background.
Yeah, good point. The material we looked at had a great example of this with BuzzFeed headlines. They're masters at crafting these incredibly intriguing and curiosity-inducing titles that practically compel you to click and find out more.
Oh, totally.
What's the psychological trick there?
Well, what's fascinating about those headlines is how they often create a curiosity gap. They present just enough information to pique your interest, but withhold the full answer, creating an almost irresistible urge to click and resolve that uncertainty.
Wow. Okay.
It's a very effective way of front-loading attention online.
And the mistake. Using generic headlines online that just blend into the digital noise and fail to spark any interest whatsoever.
Yeah.
It's like shouting into the void.
Exactly. In today's information-saturated world, blandness is inevitable. You need to give people a compelling reason to stop scrolling and pay attention to what you have to say.
This really resonates with your need, the listener's need, for engaging delivery. If you want to get your point across effectively and keep people invested, you've got to hook them right away. Think about starting a presentation with maybe a surprising statistic or an intriguing question.
Absolutely. That initial grab for attention signals to your audience that what you're about to share is valuable and worth their focus.
All right, let's move on to our third fascinating area, harnessing associations. This sounds like tapping into the way our brains naturally form connections and using that to link your message with positive feelings or ideas.
Yeah.
Our sources emphasize that all mental activity involves these patterns of associations.
What's key here is the idea that you can strategically influence those connections. It's about understanding that our brains don't operate in a vacuum. Everything we encounter gets linked to existing thoughts, feelings, memories.
Right.
By associating your message with something already positive in someone's mind, you can essentially transfer that positive feeling. It's related to the psychological concept of transfer of affect, actually.
And the upsides seem pretty significant. Increased favorability: if you link your message to something someone already likes or values, they're more likely to view your message favorably. It can also enhance trust. Those good feelings can subtly transfer to your message or your brand. And ultimately, it can give your message greater persuasive pull.
It's about creating a mental shortcut. If your message is associated with something already valued and trusted, it's more likely to be accepted without as much critical scrutiny.
But what if you don't consciously try to harness associations? Our sources caution against potential negative perceptions if your message inadvertently gets linked to something negative.
Ooh, yeah.
You could also miss opportunities for positive framing, leaving your message feeling neutral or even unappealing. And it could be harder to overcome any negative preconceptions your audience might already hold.
Those existing mental links can be quite powerful and difficult to break. If you're not proactive in creating positive associations, you risk being undermined by pre-existing negative ones.
The material we looked at offered some excellent examples. Luxury car commercials. They frequently associate their vehicles with success, status, freedom.
Oh, yeah.
Through carefully selected imagery, music, even the settings they depict.
Exactly. They're not just selling the functional aspects of a car. They're selling an aspirational image, tapping into the viewer's desires for achievement and independence.
And a misstep would be using imagery that unintentionally evokes negative emotions or associations. While our sources didn't give a specific example here, imagine a travel ad trying to be adventurous but inadvertently showing scenes that look dangerous, or, I don't know, unsafe.
Precisely, yeah.
Yeah.
Those unintended negative associations can be very damaging and completely derail your intended message. It's crucial to be highly attuned to the subtle cues you're sending.
For you, our listener, who appreciates those aha moments, this step really illuminates a subtle yet profound psychological mechanism at play. These associations often operate below the level of conscious thought, yet they can have a powerful influence on how a message is received and felt.
It highlights the interconnectedness of our mental landscape and the power of subtle cues in shaping our perceptions and attitudes. It really does.
Okay, let's move on to our fourth key area, leveraging influence principles. This involves setting the stage for a yes by tapping into well-established psychological principles of influence before you deliver your main message.
Right.
Our sources reference principles like liking, reciprocity, authority, social proof, unity, scarcity, and consistency.
The crucial element here is the pre-aspect. You're not just applying these principles within the content of your message. You're strategically laying the groundwork beforehand to make your audience more receptive to their influence.
Okay.
Think of it as warming up an athlete before a race. It prepares them for optimal performance. This draws heavily from, the extensive research in social psychology, particularly the work of Robert Cialdini.
And the benefits sound pretty compelling. You can build trust and credibility early on, especially if you subtly establish authority or maybe showcase social proof.
Oh.
You can foster a sense of obligation through reciprocity even before you make a request. And principles like scarcity can generate desire and urgency in anticipation of your message.
Exactly. You're creating a psychological climate where persuasion is more likely to take hold. You're tapping into fundamental human tendencies that have been consistently observed in social interactions.
But if you neglect these principles in your pre-suasion efforts, what are the potential drawbacks? Our sources suggest you might face lower overall persuasion rates.
Yeah, makes sense.
You could miss valuable opportunities to build that crucial early rapport, and it could be more challenging to motivate your audience to take the desired action later on.
You're essentially leaving powerful tools on the table. It's like trying to build a strong foundation with inadequate materials.
Our material provided some good examples of companies that effectively use these principles. Amazon, for instance, prominently displays customer reviews.
Oh, definitely.
That's a prime example of social proof in action, signaling to potential buyers that others have had positive experiences.
Absolutely. Seeing those positive reviews builds confidence and reduces perceived risk for potential buyers even before they decide to add an item to their cart. It's persuasive.
And a mistake would be completely failing to showcase positive user feedback, essentially missing out on that valuable social proof.
Right.
It's like having a treasure trove of endorsements and keeping it hidden.
Exactly. If you have satisfied customers, their experiences can be a potent, persuasive asset. Not leveraging that is a significant missed opportunity.
For you, our listener, who values efficiency in learning and communication, understanding these influence principles offers a strategic shortcut to more effective interactions. You're not just guessing, you're applying insights into human behavior.
Precisely. It's about understanding the underlying drivers of human decision-making and aligning your approach accordingly. Makes things smoother.
All right, let's zoom in on one of those influence principles. Building rapport early, the persuasive power of liking. Our fifth key area emphasizes the simple but profound fact that people are more likely to be persuaded by those they like.
It's a cornerstone of social interaction, really. When there's a genuine sense of connection and liking, defenses naturally lower and openness increases.
And the benefits of establishing this liking early on seem quite clear. It can lead to increased openness. People are simply more willing to hear your perspective. It fosters trust, making them more inclined to believe what you say. And it can significantly smooth out interactions, making them more positive and productive for everyone involved.
Rapport creates a positive emotional backdrop for communication. It makes people feel more comfortable and, receptive to your message.
Conversely, if you fail to build rapport early, what potential problems might arise? Our sources point to skepticism and resistance. People might be more wary of your motives.
Yeah, they put their guard up.
It can also create communication barriers, making it harder to connect and understand each other, and it can certainly hinder the development of any lasting relationships.
Without that initial human connection, interactions can feel transactional, impersonal, and sometimes even adversarial.
The material we reviewed highlighted Southwest Airlines and their deliberate emphasis on friendly and even humorous customer service.
Right.
Their aim is to create a positive and enjoyable experience, which can definitely cultivate liking and loyalty among passengers.
They understand that in a service-oriented industry, the human element is paramount. Liking can be a significant competitive advantage. It really can.
And a mistake would be having impersonal or even rude customer service interactions, which can quickly erode any potential goodwill and create negative associations.
Exactly. Negative experiences can leave a lasting bad impression and actively work against any attempts at persuasion. People remember how you made them feel.
This principle really speaks to your desire, the listener's desire, for a bit of personality in communication. Nobody wants to feel like they're interacting with a faceless entity.
Right.
Building that early rapport makes the whole experience more human, engaging, and ultimately more persuasive.
It's a powerful reminder that communication is not just about the exchange of information. It's fundamentally about building relationships.
Let's move on to our sixth key area: signaling importance and causality. This involves strategically directing attention to specific elements to highlight their significance and even imply a cause and effect relationship before you present your main argument. Our sources underscored how the very act of focusing attention can signal what matters.
It's about subtly guiding your audience's focus in a way that supports your subsequent message. By drawing attention to particular details, you're essentially saying, look here, this is important, and it plays a role in what I'm about to tell you.
And the benefits seem quite strategic. You can ensure your audience focuses on the key information you want them to retain. You can subtly shape their interpretation of events by highlighting certain factors, and it can ultimately strengthen your arguments by drawing attention to the evidence that supports your case.
It's a powerful way to frame the narrative and influence how your audience understands the connections between different pieces of information.
Yeah.
Controlling the spotlight, essentially.
Right. But if you don't actively signal importance and causality, what could go wrong? Our sources warn of potential misinterpretations. Your audience might fixate on less relevant details.
Right, they miss the point.
It could diminish the impact of your key points if they get lost amidst other information. And you could lose control of the narrative, with your audience potentially drawing their own conclusions that don't align with your intentions.
You risk your message being diluted or even misconstrued if you don't actively guide your audience's attention towards the most critical elements.
The material we reviewed gave the example of news headlines. They often frame stories by emphasizing certain aspects.
Oh, constant.
Which can significantly influence the perceived importance of different elements and even suggest a particular cause for the events being reported.
That's a very clear illustration of how strategically directing attention can shape public perception and understanding. Headlines are powerful.
And a mistake would be presenting data without clear visual cues or highlighting, making it difficult for the audience to discern the most significant trends or insights. It's like presenting a complex spreadsheet and expecting everyone to immediately grasp the key takeaways. Doesn't work.
Exactly. If you don't guide the eye and explicitly signal what's important, your audience might miss the crucial information. Or worse, misinterpret it.
This connects directly with your interest, the listener's interest, in understanding multiple perspectives. By being aware of how signaling importance and causality works, you can become a more discerning consumer of information and recognize when framing might be subtly influencing your understanding of a situation.
It encourages a more critical and analytical approach to how information is presented and interpreted, asking, why are they showing me this?
All right, for our seventh and final key area, we're looking at crafting the right environment. This involves recognizing the often unconscious influence of our surroundings, whether they're visual, auditory, or even linguistic, and using these subtle cues to make your audience more receptive.
It's about creating a context that gently nudges people towards your desired outcome. It's the subtle power of suggestion through the environment, working often on a subconscious level.
And the benefits can be quite significant, even if they often operate below the radar of conscious awareness. The right environment can exert a subtle influence on attitudes and behaviors. It can reinforce your message in ways you might not even realize. And it can certainly enhance feelings of comfort and trust, making people more at ease and therefore more receptive.
The environment can act as a silent persuader, subtly reinforcing your message and influencing mood and receptivity without explicit communication. Think about the difference between a job interview in a cramped, messy office versus a bright, organized one.
Good point. But if you don't pay attention to your environment, what are the potential pitfalls? Our sources mention distractions and even the creation of negative associations. The wrong setting could inadvertently undermine your message. And you could miss valuable opportunities for this subtle yet powerful form of persuasion.
A poorly chosen environment can actively work against your persuasive efforts, creating friction or discomfort that detracts from your message.
The material we looked at offered the example of retail store layouts. Stores strategically arrange products, use specific lighting, place certain types of music,
Oh, yeah.
all to subtly influence what you buy and how long you stay in the store.
That's a very deliberate and often sophisticated use of environmental cues to shape consumer behavior. It's a whole science.
And a mistake would be having, say, a cluttered or disorganized retail space that overwhelms customers and makes them want to leave quickly.
Exactly. A negative or confusing environment can deter people and makes them less likely to engage with your offerings, whatever they are.
This final step really underscores how seemingly small details can have a significant impact, providing another one of those aha moments about the often overlooked power of our surroundings.
It highlights the importance of considering all the factors that might influence your audience, both consciously and, perhaps more importantly, unconsciously.
So, there you have it, the 7 key areas of persuasion we've explored today. From grasping that pivotal privileged moment to thoughtfully crafting your environment, influencing others truly begins even before you utter your core message.
Absolutely. It's about strategically preparing the ground, as you said earlier, for your ideas to take root and flourish most effectively.
Now, for you, our listener, here's a thought to consider. As you reflect on these 7 principles, which one feels most relevant to the communication challenges you're currently facing? Perhaps think about specific instances where you've seen these strategies used effectively or maybe ineffectively in your own life or in the world around you.
That kind of active engagement and personal reflection is the key, really, to truly internalizing these concepts and identifying practical ways to apply them. It's not just theory.
We surely hope this deep dive has provided you with some valuable and actionable insights into the fascinating world of persuasion. By thoughtfully applying these techniques, you can undoubtedly enhance your ability to influence and persuade in a more meaningful and effective way. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive. Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're diving straight into a really fascinating aspect of influence. Persuasion. Think of it as like setting the stage so that when your message actually arrives, it lands with much, much greater impact. It's about seizing that opportune moment, what some sources call a privileged moment for change.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's less about the specific words you use, really, and more about the mental environment you cultivate beforehand. We've looked at some, well, really interesting material that breaks this down into 7 key steps.
7 steps, okay.
And these steps can give you, a real edge in understanding and guiding others.
And that's precisely what this deep dive is all about, tailored specifically for you, the listener. We're going to explore these 7 crucial ideas.
Yeah.
First, really grasping this privileged moment. Second, the skill of front-loading attention. Third, the subtle yet powerful art of harnessing associations. Fourth, strategically leveraging key influence principles right from the start. Fifth, the foundational magic of building early rapport through liking.
So important.
Sixth, how to signal importance and even causality. And finally, the impact of crafting a receptive environment. Ready to get into it?
Absolutely. Let's start by understanding the critical role of timing.
Fantastic. So let's kick off with the power of the before really understanding this privileged moment for change. Our source and highlight this is that prime window, that moment of heightened receptivity